Good morning, everyone. It's 10:30, so that's when this training was due to start. I've been waiting just for the numbers to creep up for the attendees on this. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Welcome to the Moderation Portal training for centres. So this is the first time we're delivering this for a couple of years. We do normally deliver some training for centres every year for the use of the Moderation Portal, but we haven't been using the Moderation Portal during the COVID period, except for some of the autumn series in the last couple of years that we've put on as an extra series. So welcome to this. Hopefully this will be useful for everybody. I know that will be some centres, some attendees on this webinar who have used the Moderation Portal previously, but there'll be an awful lot of you who've never used it before, I'm sure. So you're all on mute on this webinar, and feel free to pop some questions in the questions pop out that you'll probably see on the dashboard that you've got for this webinar. There's also a chat function. What I'll do though is I'll just go through the training session. There's a demonstration within it as well. And what I'll do is I'll go back to look at any of the questions that are in the chat or in the question fields at the end of the webinar, if that's okay with you, just so that I don't lose my flow really. So yep, welcome to this webinar. I'll just move on to the next slide, which shows us the agenda. So I'll go through an introduction to the portal. I'll talk through accessing the portal, whether it's the first time or another time that you've perhaps used it in previous years. There's also a few points I want to make around account management, and then really just tips around requirements for uploading evidence, selecting your sample, inputting your marks and uploading evidence, and then completing the marking process. I'll then do a demonstration of the moderation portal, and then I'll go on to talk about the actual moderation of it at the end and awarding, and then any further resources and support that are available. And at the end, there's a question and answer session where I'll go through all the questions that you may have popped into the chat. So first of all, Moderation Portal, if you've never used it before. So it's the online administration platform used to facilitate the submission of marks and evidence and the moderation of the Synoptic assignment, any centre assessed components, and the employer involvement component of technical qualifications. Now, candidates for each qualification and cohort for your centre will be pre-populated into the portal based upon the bookings that you've made on Walled Garden. And already I've hit on a key point here that is really important for you to understand the moderation portal. It's entirely based on the bookings that you've made for your candidates. So if you want to be submitting any of your marks, any of your grades for the centre assessed components, your employer involvement outcomes, you really need to have made bookings for your candidates already on Walled Garden. Otherwise they will not be showing in moderation portal, and therefore you won't be able to submit any marks results for them. So centres are responsible for uploading the candidate marks, the grades, the outcomes, as well as a sample of evidence for moderation. And on the flip side, City and Guilds moderators also have access to that moderation portal to allow them to view the centre marks and to carry out the moderation process. So yeah, in summary, it's for entering candidate marks, for Synoptic assignments, entering the results for centre assessed components, the optional units, for entering and uploading employer involvement outcomes for each candidate, and for uploading samples of evidence, of candidate evidence as per the published requirements. So we have got some documents on our website, the Marking Moderation Guide, which guides you through exactly what the requirements for the samples of candidate evidence. So on accessing the moderation portal, well, I'm in the technical quality team, and what we've been doing over the last 6 months or so, you'll probably be familiar with us asking you for contact update forms. And so we collect and confirm the main moderation portal centre account for each centre, because we need to make sure that the correct person has access to that main account, and we'll just cross-check that whoever has been named on that contact update form is the person that has access to the main moderation portal account. That can often be the main technicals contact at a centre. Sometimes people nominate like an exams contact in a centre. It all depends. Each centre has different people who are the main moderation portal centre account holder. So following this webinar, not today, but after I've completed this webinar, an email will be sent to all centres to confirm that the moderation portal is now open. I'm intending to do that on Monday, by the way, Monday the 4th of April. And the person who holds the main primary moderation portal account for each centre will then also receive a login prompt. Put a note there saying that this comes from Learning Assistant. That's because Moderation Portal is built on a platform from Learning Assistant, so the notification states Learning Assistant, so just look out for that. And that will request you to just change your password. Now, if you've previously used the Moderation Portal and can recall your password, you don't need to change it again. But if you're new to using the Moderation Portal, you will need to go on, click on Access, and then change your password. So the main account holder has then the opportunity to manage other accounts for that centre by creating new users or making previously used accounts inactive. Just noticed that one person's popped a message in the question box saying that they can't hear the webinar and has checked that the speaker's on. I'm hoping I think everybody can hear. It may just be that one person who can't hear. So I'm just going to plow on. Now, accessing the moderation portal, there is a link to it there on your screen. Now, you don't need to write this down at this point in time. It is on our website. If you go into the Technicals, Resources and Support page on the website, there's a link to it there. There's a section saying that moderation portal resources. I'm just getting confirmation that other people are hearing me here. That's good. So yeah, this is the main login page for the moderation portal. That's the image that you'd see on your screen. All you have to do on there is enter your username and password and click login. So I'm giving this as generic information for everybody, that you'd put in your username. So you would have been, if it's a secondary account for the moderation portal, your main primary account holder would have designated you a username and given you a password as well. But if it's the main moderation portal user account, that is your centre number. So you pop in the username, as in the centre number for the primary account, password, click login, and if you're logging in for the first time, you'll be prompted to change your password. So follow the instructions on the screen, create a secure password. We're all familiar with updating passwords on websites, etc. And of course, don't disclose your password to anyone else. If you do think that someone else knows your password, change it immediately or contact us in the Technicals Quality team. And once you've logged in, there's an acceptance of the user agreement as well, once you've logged in. As you can see there on that screenshot, hopefully at the bottom, you'll see a link that says reset password. And that's available for anybody. If you do go back on it later and you've forgotten your password, but you know your username, you can click on that and it will send you an email prompt back to you to reset your password. So once you're in the moderation portal, once you've successfully logged in, the homepage will load, and that's how it looks, the screenshot on the right-hand side there. Now, I won't go through, obviously talking you through a screenshot is more difficult than it is to actually show you live, so I'll show this in the demonstration. But this is on the left-hand side, you've got the navigation pane, the dark blue section, and that's the area that you access the different sections of the portal. The screenshot I've used here is our test centre for City and Guilds, and so you can see there that I've logged in as a centre. So that is the main portal account holder, and the main portal account holder has an assessments tab and they have a team members tab. They're pointed out by number 2 and number 3 there on the screenshot. So the assessments tab will take you to actually the area where you upload marks and evidence for moderation. And the team member tab will take you to the page where the main account holder can create additional marker accounts. You can change your avatar. That we've got the City and Guilds logo there, highlighted by number 4. You can change the avatar there. It's up to you. And if you click on that as well, it's a lot like when you click on, your user information on a website. You then have the access to the link to log out or change other functions within the portal. Now, also within that homepage, you have useful guidance documents and recording forms that are stored there. That list may change as the academic year moves on. So obviously always go to our website just to get the most up-to-date information, just in case this hasn't been updated on the moderation portal. But it does link you to the resources and support page for technical qualifications on our website. So once that main user has logged in, they're then responsible for us at that center. So again, just to summarize, there are two different types of accounts available for the moderation portal. The primary account, again, is that generic account that we provide, and this is the only account that City and Guilds provides. There's one per center, and we are always notified of that primary moderation portal user using a contact update form, which all of you, I believe all centers have now provided to us. You'll be able to identify this primary account because it's your center number that you log in with the username. And obviously the main purpose of that main generic account is to manage the user accounts for other colleagues, markers, assessors who also require access to the portal. The main center account does have the functionality to upload marks and evidence for assessment components, but it's recommended that you create additional user accounts so that other people can upload those marks and evidence on their own behalf. So you may have multiple sectors delivering technical qualifications, let's say hair and beauty, land and animal, and those different departments, you have the option to create other users within each of those sections to then upload their own marks, evidence, outcomes for their own candidates. So the additional user accounts are created by the primary user, but those additional users are only, well, you will be creating those additional users and the access that they have, but they should only see the qualifications that they're responsible for in the portal. And the primary user is required to assign each additional user their qualifications. And so those additional users can undertake the process of uploading marks and evidence for cohorts by using that assessment tab on the portal I just showed you earlier. I've just seen a quick question in the chat there. I'll come back to the questions at the end, but while I was on that topic, Dean, you can have as many primary users, as many additional users as you want for a center, but you can only have the one primary user, that is the one single login for that center to create additional users. So here we go again, the additional user account, only the primary user can be used. The primary user account can be used to create additional users. And in order to create a user account, you have to go into that team members tab, and then you can just click on create team member on that tab. Again, I'll show you that in a demonstration shortly. And when you're creating a user account, you're prompted to fill in details about the new user that you're creating. And we've got asterisks against all of the mandatory requirements, but actually there's a further mandatory requirement for it, which doesn't have an asterisk and force you to enter into it. And that is the email address. So you can see here on the screenshot here, I've created a pretend person, Mr. Pretend Person. It automatically generates a username, pretend.person. You can change that however you want, as long as there's nobody else with the same username. And you can enter into the next two fields a password that you want to have that person to have. You pop in all those details there, but you must also enter an email address. The reason why you have to have that is that if you don't have an email address there, you won't be able to send them their login details, and that person will also not be able to click on reset password to get a prompt back to themselves. So you must always remember to enter their email address into there as well. They also always have to have the marker ticked on the right hand side. That comes as a default anyway, so it's unlikely that you'll change that, but it must remain ticked on the right hand side. And once you've entered that information into there, you've given them a username, you've given them a password, then you can click on the right hand side, save and continue. And then you'll get that green pop-up in the bottom left hand corner stating the team member has been successfully saved. And once they're saved, you return to this screen. Unfortunately, it's a different person now, Mrs. Jane example, but you return to the details of that person that you've created. And you now need to assign the qualifications for which they're responsible. and which they need to access on the moderation portal. So that's when you would need to click on the courses button, and initially it appears as a 0 there, 0 courses for that person, but once you've assigned some qualification, that number will increase, which you'll see in a second. So again, you're thinking of the person that you're wanting to give access to different qualifications for. So now you're presented with a whole long list of all the different technical qualifications that you could assign to a staff member. So you would, in those available courses boxes there, you would search for the qualification you wish to assign to that user. You could click in the boxes and search for the code. You could search in the box above the name, the title of the qualification, and search for, let's say, hairdressing or barbering. And that will then filter down your list so that you have a fewer qualifications to select from. Once you've found your qualification, you would click, number 7 is pointing to the little plus icon on the right hand side. You click on the plus, and that then pulls the qualifications across onto the right hand side under selected courses, and that there you would see all of the qualifications that you're assigning to that user. Now obviously you need to think, as the primary user, which qualifications do these staff members need to be able to access. So if it's a tutor, a marker in the animal management department, and they need to access the animal management level 2 qualification, you'll only be searching for the level 2 animal management qualification, animal care, and applying that to select that for that person. If they need to access all of the animal management qualifications, level 2 and level 3, you would access those and select them and apply them to that staff member. Sorry. So yeah, once you're confident that the qualifications have been correctly assigned to your member of staff, then you can return to their details page by clicking on their name at the top of the screen. And you'll notice that the number of courses assigned to that member of staff will appear, and that's the example at the bottom. It changes from 0 courses to 4 courses, for example. So again, don't worry, I'll show you in the demonstration shortly how that actually works. Next, once you've created that staff member, you will need to send those login credentials to the marker who the account is assigned to. So returning to that team member screen where you originally had perhaps no team members already created, you click on the envelope icon on the far right-hand side, and that will then prompt you, are you sure you want to send this team member their login details? And then you'll get a prompt saying, success, login email has been sent. And that new user will get an email with a link, and they just need to click on that link and set up a new password for that account. Because the password that you've created, again, will always be temporary until they create a new password. So it is fairly straightforward, but I think talking through doesn't really help with screenshots, so I'll demonstrate that shortly. So those staff members that you've created with additional user accounts, they'll also need to know, I presume many of you are as well, you need to know the requirements for uploading the evidence. Now, on the right-hand side there are some guides on our website, Marking Moderation Centre guide. There's also requirements for uploading evidence for technical qualifications that detail the types of forms that are needed, and also the file requirements as well. So it's important that all evidence that's required per candidate and per cohort is stored electronically and labelled appropriately, ready for easy upload. I just really recommend that you start to consider in advance prior to that submission deadline of the 20th of May for the Synoptic assignment uploads, because you'll find that when you get to that point, you'll realize that there's a lot of consideration as to where you upload and how that gets uploaded per candidate. So start to plan this in advance, I recommend. All document formats that you have compatible with Windows and Mac. The maximum file size is 150 megabytes, which is actually quite large, unless you've got a 2-hour video. 150 megabytes is quite a large file size. And yeah, all of the Internet Explorer, Edge, different browsers are all available as well to be used for the portal. Again, just some tips on collating and gathering your evidence, really. Recommended that you try to keep the number of documents to a minimum. you know, we have seen in the past that lots of Word documents for one candidate are all uploaded. It might be 10 or 12 Word documents. You know, it could be combined, it could be scanned into one document where it's a single compressed zip file maybe, or a single PDF file is uploaded instead. So where possible, scan that evidence altogether as one document to PDF. Ensuring that each piece of evidence is clearly labelled, just to make it easy for you to upload. You know, put the candidate's name, the candidate's enrollment number onto that file name, just so that's easier for you to be able to upload from your file explorer. Try and keep the number of photos to the recommended number for each task as specified in the Synoptic material. You know, sometimes it just says all you need is one photo, one clear photo of this end product. So, you know, we don't need 10 photos from different angles. Just one photo should be enough, as long as it's clear and as long as that's follows the Synoptic material guidance. The documents that you scan in or that you upload, please do have a check of them, that they are clear, and particularly where they're handwritten documents. If they're not clear for the moderator to be able to read and to be able to understand what's written on them, we will have to go back to you and ask you to rescan it in again, so that it's fully clear for a moderator to be able to read and understand. We discourage handwritten pieces, but that's just because, again, for clarity, really. If the handwriting is easily legible, then that is fine. But where possible, discourage it. And drawing should be in very dark pencil or pen. Again, it's just for clarity on uploading. If you can just relate to how it comes across on the other side when the moderator downloads it, can they actually, you know, read it? Can they understand what is written, drawn on those candidates' pieces of work? And yeah, we recommend the use of lower resolution formats for video and pictures, or using a converting software. And only short extracts supporting the illustration of learners' performance should be used. It's all just little tips, really, that's all. And it's just so that when the evidence is downloaded on the other end for the moderator, it's easy to be, you know, understood, and rather than having to come back to you and saying, oh, sorry, can you go back and upload that again? I couldn't read it, I couldn't understand it. There's a few questions, by the way, before I move on. There's a few questions about a recording of this. I am recording it right now, yes, and it'll be uploaded onto the website. I'll pop that into the email that comes out to all centres next week to let you know where that's located, though, because I'll send that email to all of the main moderation portal contacts. So if you're selecting your moderation sample, hopefully you're familiar with this by now. If not, again, in red there you can see the marking and moderation guide. It's on the website in the resources section on the technicals page. There is a requirement for the number of candidates' evidence that needs to be uploaded. So it is the centre's responsibility for selecting that sample. We don't dictate exactly which candidates we want to see. However, it does depend on the size of the cohort of students. It must include the highest marked candidate, the lowest marked candidate, and a range of those in between. So from that table there, if you look at, if you've got 12 candidates or fewer in your class, in your cohort for that assignment, actually all of the candidates' work will need to be uploaded. So every single candidate that you're submitting marks for that cohort, for the Synoptic, you need to provide every single one of those candidates' evidence. If your cohort is between 13 to 100 students in the cohort, 12 are needed. So that's even if you have 99 students that you have marked for that Synoptic, then we just need to see 12 pieces of their work. Again, just remember that it needs to be the highest marked candidate, the lowest marked candidate, and a range of those in between. So of those 12, don't focus all on the students that you've marked in the 40 out of 60 range for the Synoptic assignment. You know, try and spread that across those who are in the 20s, those in the 30s, those in the 40s, those in the 50s, and try and, you know, that gives us that range so that the moderator can see the achievement, how well the skills of all those students across the range of achievement. again, the sample size goes up if you've got 101 to 200 students in that cohort. And so there's 15 that's needed for that. And if you've got more than 200, we need 20. It's just so that we have a good range to select and to sample from and across the range of achievement of those learners. Again, I really recommend, if you haven't already looked at it, try and have a look at that marking and moderation guide. It details all of this in that guide from the website. So again, repeating myself here, but for the sampling factors, the moderation sample for each synoptic assignment has to have the highest mark, the lowest mark candidate work, and a range of those in between. We also need you really to start to think, it's a lot like sampling of our core qualifications as well, really. Include the work marked by all markers for that synoptic assignment. You know, if you've got 200 candidates, then not one marker can mark all of those learners. So you're likely to have, you know, 4 or 5 different markers for that cohort. So we'll need to see how they've been, need to see evidence from each of those markers. Reflect the marker to candidate ratio. So if one marker marked the majority of that work, that should be reflected in the makeup of the sample provided. And include any candidates who were observed during that moderation visit where relevant. Now, not all qualifications get a moderation visit, of course, but those who have had a moderation visit, and so you've selected a sample for the moderator to observe during that visit, make sure that those candidates have their work uploaded at the back end of the year and by the 20th of May as well. And now, any candidates who have a personal interest, so maybe they have a relation with a staff member, so they would be classed as a personal interest, and they should be included in addition to that sample. So going back to that sample size, you know, if you've got 50 candidates, so you need to upload a sample of 12, but there's a further candidate who is the, I don't know, the nephew of one of your markers, then we need to have that candidate uploaded additionally as well. So you actually uploading 13 candidates, if that makes sense. And just, it's a common question that we often get every year. There's a note at the bottom of the screen here saying the sample should cover a particular assessment. If an assessment covers more than one qualification, for example, across a guided learning hours 540, 720 and 1080 qualification, then a single sample based on the total candidate number should be provided. You don't have to provide separate samples for each qualification if the assessment is the same. So for example, if that doesn't make sense, for example, we have the animal management qualifications, where in the first year of the 2-year courses, they do the 030 assessment, but that covers various sizes of that qualification, the 540 qualification, the 720. So actually it's one cohort of students doing that one assessment, but they're all registered on different qualifications. So actually we just need to be looking at the sample of work across that assessment rather than 12 uploads for the 017231 qualification, 12 uploads for the 017232 qualification. So it's just, we're looking at just that one cohort of students on that assessment. So yes, selecting your sample then, the factors for it. So a synoptic assignment, you have to input all of the candidate marks. In fact, that is for all learners across any of our units. You have to input all of your candidate marks and all of your candidate grades if you want to be claiming it for this year. So input for synoptic assignment, input all of your candidate marks and upload your sample of evidence based on the candidate numbers that we've already set out on the marking moderation guide on that earlier slide as well. Make sure your sample is representative and meets the requirements that are set out in that marking moderation guide. So again, representative across the range of candidates, that it's representative of the different markers that you have any personal interest candidates uploaded as well. For optional and mandatory units, you do again always input all of your candidate grades across all of the optional and mandatory units that you want to claim for your learners for this year. Upload a sample of candidate evidence actually for just one of the optional units. and choose a unit that covers the largest representation of the cohort if possible. So that is, again, I'm going back to animal management as my primary example here. Select one of the optional units that that your candidates have done. You need to upload, you have to input all of the grades across all of the units, but you only need to upload a sample of the evidence for one of those units, one of those optional units. But we don't want to see evidence for knowledge tests or health and safety units. We need to see the optional unit ones instead. And for employer involvement, again, all of your candidate outcomes that, whether they've passed or failed, obviously it's a pass for candidates who completed the employer involvement requirement. It needs to be a fail for those who didn't complete the employer involvement. And for the employer involvement upload of evidence, we don't need to see individual candidate evidence to say that they did their employer involvement. You can just upload your completed employer involvement planner or tracker to the documents tab. Again, I'll show you that in a second. Plus a small sample of evidence that shows that it was met. You could have some registers of attendance that show that the learners were there, that they attended, or maybe some kind of confirmation from employers to say that they attended their work placements. So some form of evidence to show that they completed that employer involvement. But the tracker, the planner, is sufficient to cover all of the candidates within that cohort for employer involvement. Okay, so inputting the marks and uploading evidence then. So I've already looked at the account management and the requirements for the sample that needs to be uploaded. So if you put myself in the position now of a marker within a center, so you can see here on the screen that a marker who has that additional user account, they only have access to an assessments tab on the left hand side there. So an additional account holder can't create additional team members like the primary account user can. So we would log into the moderation portal and click on that assessments tab. And then this brings up that screen in the center of a screen there, all those different fields to filter from. And by applying filters to the course, or those boxes on the screen there, you can filter down to the candidates for that particular qualification or assessment. Again, I'll show you this because it's hard to describe when it's just from screenshots. So once you've filtered to your qualification, you'll see your learners all appear. Assessment records, you can see just a small screenshot of some of them there. Now, on that page, you see 3 tabs as well, highlighted in orange with number 1 next to it there. Assessment records, and on that tab, you'll see all of your learners listed. And then you'll see a messages section. Now, I'll just highlight really important to say here that messages tab, we can't remove it from Moderation Portal because it's a function of Learning Assistant. It's not available for communication within the Moderation Portal, so please do not go onto that to try and communicate between yourselves and the moderator. Any communication has to be via email. The moderator will likely email you if they need additional evidence or further information, etc. So that messages tab is essentially defunct, really. And then the document section on the right-hand side of those 3 tabs is where you would upload evidence relating to the entire cohort of a particular assessment, such as your Centre Standardization declaration form, or also your employer involvement evidence as well. So in terms of uploading the evidence for a candidate, don't forget that it's not just the evidence from that assignment, as in it's not just the evidence of that the student has completed or the photos, or because it also covers the candidate record form per candidate that you upload within that sample. It also needs to be the declaration of authenticity from that candidate. Then it is the candidate assessment evidence itself, the photographs, the actual written reports, etc. Practical observation forms as well need to be uploaded per candidate. And the centre assessed components, it needs to be a sample of that candidate evidence. So that's under the assessment records. Again, that's where you would see the students, all your candidates listed. And so just to repeat that, you need to see the candidate record form per candidate sample, declaration of authenticity per candidate sample, the evidence per candidate sample, and the practical observation forms per candidate sample. Now, what you'll see is that it's all based on the status of those assessments. So again, thinking of the cohort of your learners, each cohort, you have to move it through a couple of statuses. Now, initially, when you access all of your learners, it'll state ready for marks. And as you enter your marks, your markers' names, and uploading the evidence, you'll need to change that. So it initially starts off as ready for marks. That's for you to start off with. And that means that no marks of evidence have yet been submitted for that assessment qualification. Once you've started to input your marks and upload evidence, you can change that status to say that you're still marking in progress. Perhaps you're halfway through your upload and you haven't yet completed it. But once you have completed, you've got all of your marks in, you've got all of the evidence uploaded for the sample of candidates, then you must change that cohort, all of those learners within a cohort, to marking complete. Now that just means that the City and Guilds moderator can now access all of those pieces of evidence and that they can start their moderation. Again, I'll show you that in a moment. But let's not forget, though, that there's some evidence that's needed at a cohort level. So again, looking at those three tabs that you have: assessment records, messages, and documents. Messages are defunct, so really you're just accessing the assessment records and the documents tab. In that documents tab is where we would ask you to upload anything that is relevant to the entire cohort. A prime example is in the middle of the table on the left-hand side there, the Centre Standardization Declaration. That's a document that says that you have standardized across your markers, and that that all that has taken place, and that is not specific as on a candidate level, is it? That's across that cohort. What else is needed though in that documents tab is if you're wanting to submit your employer involvement evidence as well for those employer involvement outcomes that you might have submitted already. So we need to see the evidence for that in the employer involvement planner, because that's at a cohort level. It's not per student. We don't need to see, for John and one for Mary and one for Billy. We don't need to see employer involvement evidence per student. We have to just see it across that cohort, because there's a planner for you to show us what you've planned, what you've actually completed across the year for employer involvement. Also, the personal interest form, if required, you would upload it in that documents tab, just to show that there's, perhaps there's some candidates or a candidate who there's a relationship with a member of staff, or this, just want to declare that there has been that personal interest there. So just at the bottom of the screen there, just to highlight, that documents tab is separate to the assessment records tab. When you upload documents into that tab, the document is linked to the assessment, the component unit alone. It doesn't link to individual learners, and that means that no matter what additional filters are set, that you're maybe filtering to different learners or different markers or anything, the documents that you'll see here is always linked to the course and the assessment. And that's just to highlight that, again, assessment records are per candidate, but this documents tab is per cohort. So once you've got your marks and evidence uploaded, you would be setting the status to marking complete. So that's when you're confident that your marks, your grades, your evidence, your documents have all been uploaded for an assessment component. Set that status to marking complete, and then the moderator is notified that the qualification and the assessment is ready for moderation. For each qualification and all of its assessment components, so that's the synoptic assignment, any optional units that the learners are booked onto, the employer involvement, you need to follow that procedure to ensure that all learners for the assessment component are set to marking complete. So basically, go back to that search function, search for that cohort of candidates again, so that you just bring up the whole cohort. You don't omit any candidates from your submission. find the assessment unit you want to complete, filter alone to that, as in make sure all the other filters are blank, and then click on Search Learners. And that's when you'll see all of your learners again in the Assessment Records tab. You will. I'm just noticing I haven't mentioned that number 2 highlights on the bottom right hand side. The number 2 highlights how many learners you see per page. You can expand that to see 100 learners per page or 200 learners per page. So try and expand it so that you can see all of the learners that you need to see on that page, and select all of the learners that you need to complete. Select the learners, change the status to marking complete, and click Save, and then you'll get a pop-up that says once the status is saved, you cannot be changed. So click OK, and then you'll be told that your assessments have been saved successfully. And that's how it looks on the bottom of the screen there. You have again, it's a test system that is showing on the screenshot here. So test 1 candidate for those qualification, that assessment, with the assessed results entered, with the marker name entered, with evidence uploaded for the first candidate alone there, as it happens, that they have all been ticked, and the status is being changed to marking complete, and you click the Save button for that. Again, I will show you in a moment when I do the demonstration. One thing to really highlight though is that once you have clicked marking complete, which you'll need to do before the end of the 20th of May, the submission deadline, it can't be changed without contacting the Technical Quality team. So do be sure that you've uploaded everything that you needed to. You can still view the learner marks and evidence once it's been changed, but you can't actively make any changes to that anymore. If you've realized after that submission deadline that you've forgotten to upload a document or something, do get in touch with us and let us know. We can reopen it to you so that you can upload an additional document. You do need to change it to marking complete every time though, once it's all done, so that the moderator can access the evidence. So about time, get onto the moderation portal and do a demonstration. So just bear with me, I'll pull it across from my other screen. Let me just minimize that. Bear with me, just pulling it across. There we go. So that's the login screen I mentioned earlier for the moderation portal. So I'm going to log in. Let's take it right back to what I started with. I've got a test center number here, and I'm going to just log in. So it takes me into the moderation portal, and again, this primary account that each center has. So I'm the main moderation portal contact for this test center. I have access to the assessments tab, and I have access to the team members tab. So if you're new to using the moderation portal, you would go straight onto team members and you want to set up your user accounts. So here's one that has been made earlier. So marker name with the center number, can tell me all the details of it. You'd want to create new accounts, or you may want to adjust who has already been given access previously. So for this, I'm just going to create a new team member. I'm going to make a Mr. Test marker, and if I tab to the next box, you'll see that it prompts with a username, and it's given me a tick to say that that's available as a username for somebody. And I'm just going to create a password. Select the gender. Prompts me to select the company, which is the center number again. Of course, you'll only see your own center number in there. and I'll put a position of assessor, and I'll put the email address test.marker@cityandguilds.com. And as I mentioned earlier, you always have to leave the marker tick there so that they can still access the moderation portal. And once I've done that, I'll click save and continue. Oops. Just check that. Of course, it goes slow just when I need it to to work quickly. While that's loading, Emma has asked, so will the portal be opened again for optional units, which is a later submission date? Yeah, so Emma, the portal will be open all the way through for you to be able to go in and upload your grades for optional units and employer involvement. Is that the 16th and 17th of June, I believe. That it will still be open for all of that, yes, of course. Oh. Just shows how I'm using a commonly used password. There we go. That was my own fault for using an obvious password. So I've created Mr. Test Marker, put the email address in, here's a marker, and I'm going to now assign some courses. So let's say that Mr. Test Marker is in the barbering team at my center. In fact, I'll put it in the animal management because that's the assessment I'm going to be using for the next stage of the demonstration. So I could go in here, I can type into the code 0172, and it would limit me down to all the 0172 qualifications that I might need to look at, and maybe that's not good enough for me. I'll remove that. I might pop in here, well, I need animal management, and I'll go, oh yeah, I'll tell you what, that's the one I need here, 017233. So I'm going to click on the plus, allow it to pull across to the right hand side here, and that's the qualification I want Mr. Test Marker to be able to access. Just to point out, on this screen though, there's no save button, which is often a little bit disconcerting, but if I go back, click on the person's name up here, I'll see now I have one course assigned to him. So I'm comfortable that my team member has now got access to that qualification for uploading any marks and evidence. I can click back on team members again, and I'll see Mr. Test Marker will be now listed in my list of team members. Again, once it decides to load up. There we go. Don't know about you, but I always get frustrated and I start wanting to click elsewhere once it's getting the wheel of doom. So here I have test marker. That's the new marker I've just added in with all the details here. But of course, Mr. Test Marker doesn't yet have the login to his account. So what I can do is over here, I can click on the login email to ping that across to Mr. Test Marker. Are you sure you want to email him the login details? Yes, okay. And then you'll see a little pop up, although it's at the top of the screen, hidden by that bar there, but it says that's been successfully sent. For this person here, you can see that there's no email, no envelope, sorry, on the right-hand side for him. And that is because when this account was set up, there was no email address popped in. And that's the problem, you see. So you just have to be careful that whenever you do set up one of these accounts, make sure you've got the email address in. Otherwise, you can't send that that login to that person. So now Mr. Test Marker has got an email to be able to log in. So you could continue doing that for multiple staff members across different qualifications, as long as you assign the qualification that they need to be able to access. Now I'm going to log out of this main account. Am I sure I want to log out? Yes, I am. Now I'm going to log in. I'm going to be Mr. Test Marker. As Mr. Test Marker is now accessing it for the first time, he has to change his password. So I'm going to change that to my own personal one that I wouldn't want anyone else to know about. So he then gets a terms and conditions page, like everybody gets when they go into it. I'm going to accept that. And now Mr. Test Marker can only see the home page and the assessments tab. So what he would be responsible for is going onto that assessment tab and now looking at those candidates within that cohort, within that qualification that he's responsible for, and finding those learners on here to upload that mark, the evidence, the cohort level evidence that might be needed. So what it always defaults to is the academic window, which is this year. We have to change this every year. In reality, you will have access to previous academic windows as well if you want to look at previous marks evidence that were uploaded. Obviously, you can't edit that from previous academic years. And you're only ever restricted to your own company, your own centre. So obviously I'm in the test system and this is all Mr. Test Marker can see. So let's say he's now thinking about uploading the marks and evidence for the 0172030 synoptic assignment. This is the one that I've loaded into the test system to show you. So you can put in the course as well, but again, don't forget that cohorts do span across multiple qualifications sometimes. So if you're looking at an assignment that spans a couple of qualifications, only upload on an assessment level, don't forget. So without changing any of the other filters, I'm going to click on Search Learners. And now I can see that there's 20 assessment records for the 0172030 synoptic assignment. And you can see here that I've now got assessed results that are all empty, that all drop downs there. And I've got the markers names that are all empty there currently as well. And you can see the status on the right hand side that says ready for marks. What I can do if I wanted to is I could sort, not filter. I could sort on learner name. I could sort on the course number, the assessment number. Obviously, if I sorted on these, it's all the same assessment, likely to be all the same qualification in there. So if you sorted on it, it wouldn't make any difference to the order that you'd see it. But you might want to sort in alphabetical order of learner surname. So if I click on that, comes back in alphabetical order, of course, this time. So as a marker, I'd want to be now going through and entering my assessed results. So I'd want to go through, well, this candidate here got 24. This candidate here, looking at my marking sheet that I've got on my other screen, this one here got 50. This one here, we've marked them as a 42. This one here is 39. Now you'd go through all of them, you'd enter the marks in 22. This one was 54, 40, 35. This one here actually, although we booked them earlier, they didn't actually stay on the course, so that's work not submitted. We don't have them anymore. Candidate 17. This one too, they actually they didn't complete that synoptic assignment. They just pulled out and they've withdrawn from the course entirely. This one here only did a couple of the tasks and they didn't get marked very highly. As a result, they didn't complete the full synoptic assignment. This one here, 51, and you'd go through all of your candidates and you'd enter their marks. Another WNS for this one. Another WNS for this one because they left. Missed one. I shouldn't have chosen 20 candidates, of course, to enter all this information in for. There we go. So you've entered all of your marks in against all of those candidates there. You've entered WNS for the candidates that you don't have any outcome for at all, any marks for. But you also have to go through putting a marker name in. It defaults, because I've logged in as Mr. Test Marker, it defaults to give me my marker's name. That's me, obviously. If it was somebody else, if you're uploading, but you know that it was marked by somebody else, so somebody, well, let's change it so it's obvious. Jane Assessor. Then you can enter another name in because the marker was actually different for this candidate here. But otherwise, it always defaults to your name if you're the one who's doing that uploading. So let's just get my test marker name in to each of them. You can see that this does, and by the way, you do just need to pop a name in next to the WNS ones as well. It does take some time just to, especially if you have a large cohort of 200, this is why you need to start making some time to put aside to spend on this really. So once you've got all that in, and they're all ticked and they're all green as you can see here, but the status is still ready for marks, change the status to marking in progress. So you've got all the marks in, you've got all of the markers' names in. Once this is saved, the status will change to marking in progress, and you can still obviously access all of that. That is still in the centre's hands to be able to access those learners. And that is just my comfort blanket if I were you, that you want to just make sure you've got everything in there, and you can click on marking in progress and you get that notification that's saved successfully. So if you logged out of the moderation portal now, you're not going to lose everything that you've entered in there. But obviously we now need to think about, well, right, I've got a cohort of 20 here, so I need to upload 12 pieces of evidence, don't I? Because I've got more than 12 candidates on this course. So if I click on the assessed result order, and now I can see things. I've got 4 candidates who are WNS. That leaves me with 16 candidates with marks there. I'm going to need to upload my evidence for the lowest marked, the highest marked candidate, and a range of those in between, aren't I? So let me have a look. I've got the lowest one there, 7 marks. I mean, yeah, I'll upload my evidence for that one. I'll likely also upload evidence for this one here, because this one here is more likely to be, you know, considered as a fail ultimately, isn't it? But I'll still upload it anyway, the evidence that we've got for moderation. But overall, you would just be uploading the lowest marked candidate and then this highest marked candidate's evidence. So let me just take this candidate, for example. You click on the lines on the right-hand side, and this is where the evidence can be uploaded. And you've got a browse files box here. You can do the same on the previous one as well. You can see that the browse file, this is for this candidate now, candidate 10. This is not for candidate 11 underneath. So I'll open up candidate 11 again, so that this one here we want to upload evidence for because they're the highest marked candidate. So I'll now browse my files. Yep. So I'm now going to just browse my files. I didn't actually provide myself with enough folders here for these candidates. It should be candidate 11 I'm looking for. But I've organized all of my folders here nicely. So that candidate 1, candidate 2, is I've got all of the evidence lumped in together. So this one here, let's just pretend for my own purposes that this is candidate 11. And so what I'll just double check, have I got, yes, there's my synoptic. And there's, yep, I've got my photographic evidence, I've got my actual assignment from that candidate, I've got my CRF, I've got my declaration of authenticity, I've got my practical observation form. What I can do is I can highlight all of those together, open them, and then you'll see them start to upload. So all those files can be uploaded together for that candidate, and you'll see them all appear on the right-hand side. There's the evidence for that candidate. If you've made a mistake and you want to remove one, click on the little rubbish bin over there, and that will remove it from the evidence. It's easily done. Let me go back to a different candidate. Let's say candidate 8 over here. I'm just going to do the same for them. So candidate 8, I'm going to browse my files. I'm going to go back to my folder here. There's candidate 8, and I'm looking at Synoptic. I might say to myself, you know what, I don't want to do all individual files. I might actually do a compressed folder. So I'll just, yeah, there's my compressed folder. And you can upload just a zip file like that. And there it is. So again, the moderator will be able to download that one folder of all the evidence compressed into it as a zip file. So you do that again, going back to those requirements for uploading for the Synoptic. You need to be able to know how many candidates and which candidates you're uploading your evidence for. And just as a repeat for what I said on the slideshow there, it's always the lowest marked, the highest marked, and a range of those in between. So what we wouldn't want to see is the lowest marked candidate with evidence uploaded, and then every other candidate after them. You want to, it'll be a bit of a pick and mix where you'll be omitting some out because you need to get that range of those markers. And where you have different markers names, remember there's one there that said Jane Assessor, you would want to see the evidence for that candidate because that was marked by a different person. So the moderator would likely come back to you and ask for that evidence to be uploaded if you didn't already. What you do see as well, if I just minimize that section, once you've uploaded your evidence into here, you'll see that this column starts to show with a paperclip, and that makes it easier to see on our end which ones we've actually got evidence for. So candidate 8 there, we have evidence already, and when we open up the little lines underneath it, we can see where the evidence, what the evidence is. Okay, so once that is all completed, I'm not going to go through and upload 12 pieces of evidence for the purpose of this demonstration, but you get the idea that you go through each of the candidates that you need to upload your evidence for. And once that's all completed, again, you can leave the moderation portal at this stage. You can come back to it. Once that's uploaded, it will save. Now, come back to it at a later time, filter down to that cohort of students. But with the status of marking in progress, that will not be accessible for the moderator because obviously you can still go in and make changes. You can change the student to 12 marks and you can resave that again, marking in progress, save that again. But so what you need to make sure is at the end, before that Synoptic deadline that we have on the 20th of May, make sure that all of the students that you're submitting the marks for and the evidence for, that you change these all by ticking that box at the top, highlights them all green. You can change the status to marking complete. Hit save. And it does pop up and says, don't forget, once saved, this status cannot be changed. And once you click on OK, it saves it and basically prevents you from being able to access that again because it's now over to the moderator. It's in the moderator's hands now. So there we go. And you can see now the drop-down boxes aren't accessible. The marker, changing the markers' names is not accessible anymore for you as a centre. So I think you're starting to understand how it all works. You upload your marks, your evidence. This box here at the top, by the way, takes you back to the search screen. So if I was test marker and I was going on here, you can take out the assessment. I've sorted out my Synoptic now, and I now need to think about my optional units. 310 was the other assessment I'd loaded into the system. So I now have the same kind, and they're all loaded. They've all got their bookings there. They're all awaiting their results to be entered and their markers' names. And you do exactly the same for this, putting all of the marks in, or the for optional units. You have pass, merit, distinction, fail, and again work not submitted. for them. And again, you'll need to pop the marker's name in. But don't forget that not every optional unit needs to have evidence uploaded. You just select one of them that you choose to upload your evidence for, but it can't be the knowledge test and it can't be the work placement, so the work experience unit. So you do that again as test marker. You'd go through all of your learners and you'd go, that one was a pass, that one was a merit, that one was a distinction, this one here dropped out halfway through the year. And popping the markers' names in again. This time we've got Jane Assessor who's appearing, we've got test marker again. So you can go through, you can upload, you can enter all of the details of all of your candidates. You can again change it to marking in progress while you're still possibly working on the rest of your candidates and trying to get the outcomes together. But once you've made your decision, you're completely confident with the outcome for the different candidates. So let me find the candidate 18, number 11, number 2. Really happy with everything that they've done. I'm going to now put it to marking complete and hit save. And again, can't change it after that. Oh, missing my marker, prompts me to do that. So yeah, once it's at marking complete, you just, but don't forget that we do need every mark for every candidate that you want to be claiming through Moderation Portal for any outcomes for this year. So if you forget to enter a result for candidate 16 into here and you've moved this one to marking complete, but this one has nothing entered into it, then we will not pick up on that, and that student's results will not get processed. So just be careful that you do enter everything that you need to for all of your cohorts, all of your assignments. Okay, so that I'll move on. I mentioned the document tab earlier as well. So I'll just go back to this search screen. I'm just going to reset that search form. So again, as the marker, you'd go into it and you'd find the assessment that you're wanting to work on, because you need to now upload anything that is cohort wide, don't you? Anything that is the Centre Standardization form, or maybe the employer involvement form. So find the Synoptic assignment again, search the learners, brings up all the learners that you've already submitted there for, but now you can go onto the Documents tab. And the cohort-wide evidence that's needed, you know, your Centre Standardization document, for example, for that cohort, you click on Create the Document, and again, you're just prompted to find that document within your folders. So pop a note in saying Centre Standardization form. And then browse for it in your files. So there's my cohort evidence that I've saved. And there I've got my Centre Standardization declaration that I've saved. And there it is, it's uploaded. Again, you can remove it if you need to. You can add further files in there, but this is attached just to that one assessment there. So if I click save, there it appears. So the moderator, again, when they do on their end, they're doing their moderation, they're looking at the candidate evidence within the assessment records tab, but they'll also go to this documents tab for this assignment and they'll be looking for that standardization declaration form. It'll show you who has attached it, test marker, the name of it, and the size of the file, etc. So that's where they would go to find that. They wouldn't be looking for that standardization declaration against any of the individual learners in the assessment records tab. For the employer involvement, it's the same again, isn't it? 0172 833, I believe, for this one. So doing the search brings up all the candidates again. And by the way, for the employer involvement, it's just dropping down the assessed result, and you just have fail or pass for employer involvement when you're entering the outcomes for the learners. But again, it's candidate-wide evidence, sorry, cohort-wide evidence that's needed here. So clicking on the Documents tab, where again, you can see that we're limited to just that assignment alone for employer involvement. So go and create the document. Get your files from wherever you've saved them. So in this example, I've got the presentation that I know that we had from the employer. There's a register because all my students attended it. And there's my planner that I've got together as well. So if I, must be, tell you why that is, because I've got some empty documents there with nothing contained within them. But you get the idea, though, that those documents are actually just blank for the purposes of this demonstration. But yeah, once you've got your evidence uploaded, that you've browsed for them, you've attached it, it is attached to that assessment, the employer involvement. Click on save. Oops, of course I forget that part. EI planner and evidence. Click on save. And that again shows as a document. In a moment, it will show as a document. Okay, while that is loading, let's have a look at any questions. We've got plenty. Actually, I might need to return to that later. Right, I'm going to move that off my screen. There we go. I will come back to any questions that we've got at the end of this, but that's all I wanted to really show within the moderation portal as a demonstration. Now, in terms of the actual moderation, once you've submitted all of your marks, your evidence, the outcomes for employer involvement and the centre assessed components, etc. Once you've entered it all, then the moderators carry out a remarking of a sample of candidates to determine how closely the marking aligns with a common standard. So they'll be looking to see whether the centre's marks are accepted, and if not, how much they need to be adjusted in order to bring them into alignment with the set standard, because obviously the moderators all go through their own standardization around the same time that you're uploading all of your evidence, actually, so that they are completely standardized to the standard that's expected within those synoptics, and to understand really where the marking needs to be applied within that marking grid. There are two potential outcomes for moderation. Either we accept the centre's marks, and that's where the marking of the centre is found to be within tolerance of the agreed national standard for that qualification. And alternatively, the centre's marks could be adjusted. And that might be where the moderator finds that the centre is either too lenient or too harsh, or a mix of being too lenient or too harsh within a whole synoptic assignment. In those instances, we will make an adjustment to all candidate results to bring them into line with the agreed national standard. It does depend on the size of the cohort. It depends on whether you've got a small cohort with less than 12 candidates, for example, where a moderator will be looking at all of that sample anyway. But if it's a large cohort, then we do have to apply what's known as regression, where we alter the candidates' results where we haven't been able to actually sample their evidence. So on the left-hand side, I've documented further samples where there's not sufficient evidence to make an informed decision, or perhaps where evidence is missing. The moderator will refer those candidates' records back to centres, sometimes even whole cohorts back to you on the portal. So do look out for, you do need to still be available and looking out for any emails from moderators after that submission deadline, because the moderators will be coming back, likely will come back with any questions about, if the missing candidate record form, or maybe the evidence that's been provided didn't cover all of the tasks, perhaps, or maybe there's nothing uploaded at all for the whole cohort of candidates. And so the moderator will get back in contact with the main contact for technicals at a centre to ask for that additional work to be uploaded. It could also be where a moderator needs to extend their sample. They might need to see work from additional learners in addition to the 12 that you originally uploaded. So don't forget that the sample that you upload is a sample, and you may be still asked for other learners to be provided. Candidates who don't, centres who don't provide that additional evidence do risk their candidate certificates not being released as per the published date for the academic year. We have seen it where it takes such a long time to get evidence back from a centre after being requested after that submission deadline that it gets so very close to that that results release date in August. So please do try and react as quickly as you can when a moderator asks for further information or further documents to be uploaded. With your moderator, you'll know that where moderation visits are applicable for the qualification for technicals, you'll have contact with the moderator there, obviously. And this end of year remote moderation also takes place, and it's potential that you'll be in touch with your moderator around that time as well. Now, where you've been visited by a City and Guilds moderator as part of your delivery, the technical qualification, that same moderator, where possible, will be allocated to complete the same cohort's remote moderation process. But there may be situations where we can't allocate the same moderator. That could be because of moderator sickness, or could be because of moderators who aren't available when we need them to be. And where that's the case, you will be notified of who your moderator is by the technicals quality team. Same with those qualifications that didn't have a moderation visit. So for example, digital, IT, health and social care. Those who didn't have a moderation visit, you'll each get an overview of the name of the moderators assigned to your centre. Now, again, going back to that point on the moderation portal, the messages tab doesn't work and it won't be used for communication between yourselves and the moderator. So all communication needs to be with the moderator by telephone or email. And moderators are provided with the contact details of the main contact person at each centre. Moderators will only contact centres if there's a requirement for further evidence or to discuss a query or question with you. If you have any concerns about who your contact person is at your centre, get in touch with us, a technicals quality team. We might ask you to complete and return a contact update form. The same applies if you want to, or if you don't know who your main moderation portal contact is. That contact update form, again, it's on the website, but do get in touch with us if you want to know, if you need to just check who we've got as your moderation portal contact or your main contact person at your centre. So, okay, awarding. Once all that moderation has been completed by the moderator, an awarding process is carried out by City and Guilds where the grade boundaries for pass, merit and distinction will be agreed for each synoptic assignment. So what we do is we hold an awarding consultation with a panel of subject experts, and that's the principal moderator for the qualification, plus assessment colleagues within City and Guilds, and they look at basically a number of different pieces of work across a range of marks to identify the raw mark that they feel is the boundary for the grade. And this is just a reminder that we do not know at this stage where the pass boundary is, where the distinction boundary is, or the merit boundary. We have no idea until awarding takes place, which is usually in July, June, July. So we have no idea where that pass mark sits at all. The findings of this awarding group will be discussed and the final boundary will be determined through consensus. We'll be referencing all the information available, and grade boundaries for all assignments will be made available for centres once that awarding process is completed. So when you're doing your marking now, you know that you have to just apply your marks against the marking grid. You don't know where the pass mark is, or you don't know if a pass is a 22 or a 28 right now. And we also don't know until we see the quality of the work that comes back in and where the awarding can take place, and decide on where those pass and distinction boundaries lie. However, I should again point out though that throughout all of this process, we may be in touch. We may need to contact some centres for additional candidate evidence to help us with that awarding. We might request centres to upload additional candidate evidence samples in order to facilitate the awarding process, and where that's required, we'll be in touch with centres with a list of candidates whose evidence is required, and we'll ask you to upload that to the moderation portal. This is really to help us to identify where those pass merit distinction boundaries lie, because we might not have been able to get an idea of what mark signifies a pass, and we might come to you and say, can you just provide some evidence of your learners that you've marked as a 22 or 23 out of 60, and can we just have a look at that evidence so that can feed into our awarding processes. It is really critical for us to get that done though, so we do ask that if we get in contact with you, that you upload that evidence to the portal within 2 working days if possible. It could regrettably result in late results for learners in August, so we will be, if we do need you to do that, we'll be in contact. We have asked again on the contact update forms for all centres, is there a July contact, because we know centres close during the summer. So we do have your contact information already if we do need to get in touch and ask you for any additional evidence. But please do, please do help us with that to make sure we can get through that awarding process. Oh, I thought I was moving. There we go. So final section really is just to again highlight the resources and support, and then I'll move on to some of the questions that I've been receiving. So in terms of resources and support, again, really want to point you in the direction of that Marking Moderation Centre Guide. If you haven't had a look at it already, go ahead, have a good read of it. It tells you everything about the sampling requirements, the processes, what the moderator will do, what moderation looks like. And of course, this training, I'm recording it currently. It will go on the website, but there's also that guide there. That is the screenshots of the whole process of using moderation portal. That goes through creating accounts, it goes through uploading marks and evidence. So, depends on how you work best. You might want to print it out and have it next to you as you're working through the moderation portal, or you might want to share this video once it's uploaded onto the website. And finally, we have obviously the website online has all the further resources and support that you might need, which includes the link to the moderation portal and the guide I've just mentioned. But of course, we've got Technical Quality. That's the team who will be able to support you if you've got any questions. Contact them by email, by telephone, get in touch and just have a chat with us. And as always, we've got our technical advisors who are always on hand if you want to have talk about the qualification, that you want some advice and guidance on the specific qualification details. Their contact information is all on the website as well. So just go onto the website and search technical advisors if you don't know where to find that information already, and technical advisors will be happy to help. That's the end of my presentation. So with that, I'm going to leave that on the screen so that you can make use of it, and you can access all the details there if you want to make notes of the telephone number. I'm going to work my way back through some of the questions, so bear with me because I can see we've had a lot. We had a question, if the moderator comes on a visit, this is right at the start of my recording, sorry James, if the moderator comes on a visit, the report they leave with you, does that need to be uploaded with evidence of their visit and what they've said? No, that's for your use only, James, in your centre. For you to use between yourself, other markers, other assessors who need to know that feedback on how you've gathered your evidence, on how you're making notes on your practical observation forms, and how you've taken your photographs, etc., whatever it might be. That's for you to give you best practice advice, guidance, support on how to complete the synoptic assignment. So no, we don't need to see that back. Move down because there's a lot of people saying yes, I can hear. How many primary users? Only one primary user, but as many additional users as you want. This presentation, no, the presentation itself won't be sent to everybody, but you will get the recording of it uploaded onto the website. Like I say, I'll try and, when I send out an email to all centres on the 4th, April the 4th, I'll send an email which will contain a link to this as well, to the video. So Dean said, how can one user have access to a range of qualifications offered if not a primary user? The reason I ask this, our primary user will be our exams lead, but as a head of area, it would be good to have access to all. So if I'm understanding that correct, Dean, because you asked the question earlier about how many primary users, if you are using the primary account, you can access all of the qualifications you have under your centre. And you can go on and upload marks evidence across all of your candidates and all qualifications. And so you're saying that the primary user will be the exams lead, and as head of area it would be good to have access to all. Well, that's perfectly fine. Your exams lead could create you as a additional user, and the exams lead, when they're using their primary user account, they can add all of the qualifications to your personal additional user account. So yes, you can have an additional account and you can access all of the qualifications if you need to. I've got a moderator who's, I think he's left the call now, but he's put a comment on saying, as a moderator, can I advise ask centres to upload one single file per candidate as it's easier to look at the evidence? Yeah, I mean, it is recommended for centres to upload just one single file. You know, if you just scan as a PDF all of the candidate evidence, the CRF, the PO forms, the candidate declaration form as one single PDF, and that is perfect, because again the moderator will just download one file on the other end. That's usually what is recommended. You'll get your advice from your moderators as they visit you probably, but it is acceptable. If you upload multiple files, that it is acceptable, but it just makes it easier if you could just do it as one. It's probably easy for yourselves as well to upload it as one file. Yeah, good question, this one next. Brian Hill has asked, when you set up a new user and send them their login details, is there any requirement for them to log in before the password expires? For example, it's usually only 24 hours to use a reset password. Yes, it is actually, Brian. It's 48 hours for ours. However, what I would say is that if that is missed, then as long as the user logs in, puts in their username, and then clicks on reset password, then they can get that prompt back to them again to then log in, reset their password however they want it. But yeah, once you as a primary user have pinged that email across to them, they should try and log in within 48 hours to use that. But otherwise, it doesn't mean that they can't ever log in again. They just need to click on reset password. A few people are asking for slides to be shared. If evidence is uploaded after the 20th of May, what is the last date we can upload? I'm thinking if students are off sick and not in college on assessment dates. So Tanya, just to let you know that we really need all of the evidence to be uploaded by the 20th. If you feel like there's going to be a delay to that, you really need to get in touch with us in Technical Qualifications, Technical Quality. If you feel like you're going to be delayed in uploading any of your marks and evidence, and therefore the moderator won't be able to start their moderation, please do get in touch with us so that we can let the moderator know. And we need to confirm an extension with you, because, you know, as it stands, we are not delaying that date from the 20th of May. Everybody needs to upload. You know, it puts every centre in the same position that you have to aim towards getting all of your evidence and marks uploaded by the 20th of May for the Synoptic. But if you do have that situation, get in touch. We'll then have a word with the moderator, and we'll have to, you know, try and arrange an extension for you. However, I will say that any extensions that we authorise, if there's still missing evidence, if there's still anything that the moderator needs to come back to you about, it could potentially delay the release of the candidates' qualifications on the results dates. It just delays the whole process for us. As you can see, we've got the moderator who starts their moderation. We've then got awarding that needs to take place, and then obviously all of our internal logistics side of things. So do please try and aim towards getting it on the 20th of May. Cheryl is asking, can you clarify if a qualification has level 2 and level 3, would 12 samples be accepted or 12 from each? Cheryl, you've listed a qualification number there. That's not a technical qualification, 7002. But I think what you're asking is if you've got a level 2 and a level 3 qualification, is it 12 samples across both level 2 and 3, or is it 12 from each of those? As long as it's got an individual, like level 2 has a certain synoptic assignment, let's say it's 021 code, and level 3 has 031 code, then those are different cohorts, and then that means that you have to have a sample of 12 minimum from each of those. So no, it wouldn't be shared across a level 2 and a level 3 for the sample. Is it one employer involvement for each student or one per group? It's one per group, one employer involvement planner per group. I think I've had another question dropped in. Do you use the same candidates in your sample for the synoptic assessment and the optional component? No, Michelle, it can be different students for your sample of the synoptic assessment and for your sample of the optional component. They can be different candidates that you upload the evidence for. Is there a status for students that have left and no marks will be submitted? Yep, I've just said that. I think work not submitted for students that have left. I've answered the question about optional units and a later submission date. When does the portal open? Well, to be fair, it's very close to being open. What I want to do though is make sure that you get, as the primary user account, you get an email on the 4th of April, so that gives you all the details that you need, and then that will follow up with another email that gives you your login prompt. So let's say from the 4th of April, that's when the moderation portal will be open to you. Is the sample evidence size for optional units the same as synoptic evidence? Yes, it is, Deborah. So if you've got 200 candidates doing an optional unit, then you need to have 20 candidates uploaded for that optional unit. Again, the lowest and the highest marked tends to be, one of the passes and one of the distinctions, and then a range of in between. Again, so don't upload all of your distinctions as the sample, but yes, it's the same. It's 12 or 15 or 20, depending on the size of that cohort. For the documents tab, I understand that's a cohort level for the planner, but do you put a small sample in for placement evidence also? Yes, please, Angela. Yeah, so always upload the planner for the employer involvement, and provide a sample of the evidence as well, so that we can see that it took place, and that we can see that those learners did actually achieve that outcome. What if a candidate's deadline is extended and they still show on the list? Do we leave it blank? Right, no, Sam. I'm thinking what you're meaning is that if one candidate out of a cohort is not submitting yet by the 20th of May, leave it blank and submit all others? No, it needs to be on a full cohort approach. So if you're missing one of those candidates, then we can't accept that cohort yet. So don't leave it blank. Again, going back to the earlier question, come to us, let us know that there's going to be a delay for submitting that cohort of all of the students' marks, all of the students' evidence, the sample of students' evidence, of course. But don't just leave one of them blank, because that will just kind of trip up the moderator on the other side, and we'll just have to delay until we know what that student has achieved. Potentially they could be the highest marked candidate, you see, and that's the candidate that the moderator will need to have a look at. So that's why we need to look at it on a cohort level. When you see a range, say a range, do you mean the range across all grades? fail, pass, merit and distinction. Not the fails, Annette, and I think you're talking about optional units there if you're talking about pass, merit and distinction. So we just need to see those that have been marked internally. So yeah, don't bother with the fails, it just needs to be a range across the passes, the merits and the distinctions. Is there anywhere that we can see what the synoptic marks equate to, please? For example, AO1 to AO5 scores add up to 23. Is that a P1, P2, etc.? I'm unable to find any previous year's examples of this. I did speak to quality early last week, but they haven't got back to me yet with an answer. Okay, Emma, that you're thinking of when we're talking about P1, P2. I know that we did that for TAG last year, where we asked centres to put a teacher assessed grade and then differentiate within the pass. You know, you were actually marking it on behalf of an awarding organisation, weren't you? You were doing that job for us essentially because it was a teacher assessed grade. You were saying which ones were a pass and which part of a pass were those students achieving. No, to summarise basically that once you've marked and you've put your scores in that added up to a 23, then that's all you enter. You have no idea and we have no idea what that 23 actually equates to until we go through that awarding process. So I hope that I kind of explained that a little bit better during the presentation earlier. You might have got your answer already. Annette has said, I believe college will receive synoptic exam grades over Easter. Can we start uploading grades then, or do we have to wait until the 25th for when students have been notified? Let me read that again. I believe college will receive synoptic exam grades over Easter. Can we start uploading grades then, or do we have to wait until 25th? For the exams, yeah, you will get your exam results over Easter for the spring series, won't you? You can start uploading your synoptic marks at any time once your markers have completed the marking of it and that you've all standardized you know, your assessment decisions on that. So there's no start date for when you can start uploading as long as you've completed all of your internal processes in it. As long as it's also completed before the 20th of May as well, please. So no, it doesn't have to be after the exam results date. Angela, I think I've answered the question for the optional unit. Again, it's the same as the synoptic really, 12, 15 or 20. Zoe has asked, is there a written how-to guide? Don't have the full question there, Zoe, if you want to go back to that, I'm not sure. Jane has asked, for the level 2 hair and beauty synoptic assessment, would the centre documents be just centre declaration form and personal interest form? For the level 2, yeah, so because level 2, yeah, all of your candidate, again, Jane, all of your candidate documents need to be uploaded per candidate for the synoptic evidence. But for the synoptic, the only centre-wide document that you need to, cohort-wide document that you need to be uploading is the centre declaration form. And if you've got any candidates where there's a relationship with one of the markers perhaps, or that they're you know, the nephew of another staff member where there's a personal interest, then the personal interest form needs to be uploaded as well. Yeah, but that's for all, actually. It's not just for level 2 hair and beauty, it's for all qualifications. That Joanne has asked, if we have registers for the employer involvement evidence, do we need registers for all the hours achieved or just a small sample of registers? A small sample is fine, Joanne. A small sample of registers is fine, just to prove that it did take place, that we can just see that, you know, along with the planner, of course, just to let us know what the content of that activity was, that employer involvement activity. But then we just have a look at the registers as a sample, that's fine. Where does the paper health and safety exam go? You don't have to upload that, Veronica. You don't. You just need to enter the students' outcomes. You know, how they were marked. The only sample that we need of a centre assessed component is an optional unit. So no, we don't need to have that uploaded. We have a student with an extension to her synoptic. I assume we just don't mark her as marking complete and upload her synoptic unit later. Again, I think I've just answered that, Helen, for another question. Again, let us know who it is. we'll take a look. We're not authorizing any extensions just yet for Synoptic assignments until we get closer to the actual deadline, but do let us know closer to that time if you're not able to upload a learner or a cohort of learners evidence by that 20th of May. We just need to know, and we'll need to have a word with the moderator, because it's likely that it'll delay the rest of the processes for us. And again, we always say that it could potentially delay results as well. But no, just if you haven't got the all of the evidence completed for a learner, don't upload half of it and put the mark in, half completed, and then just send it through for moderation, because we wouldn't want to accept something incomplete. Emma has asked, I'm the only marker for level 2 and level 3 animal care. Is this going to cause a problem? Other staff have undertaken the PO forms and a sample has been internally verified. No, that's fine, Emma. I'll just make sure that you are supported to check your marking outcomes. It sounds like you've got quite a lot to be going through there. If other staff have undertaken the PO forms, I'll just question how you're going to confidently complete all the CRFs. Based on the evidence that you're looking at from those candidates, but it won't cause a problem. If you haven't had your moderation visit already, have a chat with your moderator. But I'll just try and make sure that all of how you're marking it, you just pay close attention to, because you're not the person who did those observations initially and did those practical observation forms. So is that sufficient for you to be able to confidently then put the mark together for the CRF? And also, like I say, it does sound like you have quite a lot to be working through there, level 2 and level 3. And hopefully you've got somebody else who can support you with, standardizing and checking your assessment decisions there. Gillian has asked, is the marker name when submitting the marks, is this the course manager name or the individual inputting the marks onto the portal? Gillian, that's actually the name of the person who did the marking. So neither the course manager nor just the person inputting the marks onto the portal. It's the person who actually did who completed that assessment, who marked it. So I hope that kind of makes sense. So Helen asked, we haven't yet received a portal login. When might I see that? So yeah, again, we'll send that out on the 4th of April, Helen. It would be good to have a backup primary user for holidays and other absences. Is this something that might be considered? Now, again, we only provide one primary user account. What is done within a centre, though, is if it's, for example, an exams team, you can share that account, obviously, between a couple of people who have that responsibility if there's going to be an absence. That's the way that it sometimes works within centres. But no, there's only ever one primary user account that is used, because we only have it set up one per centre. That's why. So we wouldn't create like centre number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Account 1 and account 2. We only have one per centre. Do you submit the same amount of samples for the Synoptic and optional units? Yes, I've answered that already. Can the cohort of 12 units include both 16 to 19 adult learners on the same course? Yes, that's fine. The deadline for other units other than Synoptic, is it also the 20th of May? No, that's any other unit other than Synoptic is, I think it's the 17th of June. I don't know why I've got the 16th playing in my head, but I'm pretty sure it's the 17th of June. I answered some other questions about extensions. Does the work need to be IQA'd? Well, in terms of technicals, we don't need, the term IQA isn't really applied for technicals, but yes, standardized is the word needs to be referred to, really. If you've got multiple markers, are you all applying the marking grid in the same way? So have a standardization session across before you upload all of those marks and evidence. just to make sure that everybody's applying the same assessment decisions, really. So not necessarily for IQA in those terms, but in terms of standardization, yes. Are the exam results for year 1 and year 2 still due to be released on April 25th? Yes, as far as I know, Tracy. No change to that. Everything all the dates are on our website when they will be released. Zoe's asked a written guide and access. Yeah, the earlier question, is there a written guide and accessing using the portal? Yeah, Zoe, so this video will be on the website, but there's also a guide on the website, a written guide that you can print out as well. Tony has asked, we have some learners that have recently transferred up the 1080 for funding purposes. Bookings are already entered for the lower tariff qualification. Can these be removed so the correct booking can be undertaken for these learners? We wouldn't remove bookings, Tony. We've had a similar question recently into the team, I think. I don't know if it was your centre, but no, if you've already made bookings for a learner who is on a smaller qualification and they've now registered onto the higher qualification, I know that we wouldn't be changing bookings. You can still find those candidates under the original bookings on the moderation portal. Now, the situation with that is that whatever their outcomes that are entered onto the moderation portal, they will pull through onto that higher qualification. It's just a case of that we don't tend to have learners stepping up mid-year, so we'll stick with the original bookings, but you'll just have to enter their outcomes onto the moderation portal as it is, and they will pull across once they move into their second year anyway. And okay, might be confusing for our tutors. Yeah, Tony, I'll give you a call and talk that through with you at some point about the moving up onto the qualifications. Marker. For any mock unit assessments completed i.e. via Smart Screen, can those need to be uploaded to the support evidence on final grading? Not for mock unit assessments, Oliver. No, we just need to see, so again for the Synoptic assessment, then it's the actual evidence produced for that Synoptic assignment needs to be entered onto the moderation portal. For moderation, we wouldn't need to see anything mock. For that, you might be getting confused with TAG for last year, where that kind of evidence was needed for you to determine your assessment outcomes. But no, this is the full evidence that's needed for the Synoptic assignment. And Tony, you've just mentioned, unfortunately, the employer involvement will be the wrong one if we leave the units as they are. Absolutely right. That's the point, though, that when you have to make sure that the employer involvement, Tony, is correct for the qualification that you're needing to claim. So if you've got the employer involvement for the lower qualification, then book the other qualifications employer involvement, the larger qualifications employer involvement as well. That will still be bookable because they've got that registration for that larger qualification now. But I know what you mean. But I will pick that up with you separately. So I'm not, this recording will be on the website. So I'll pick that up separately with you. Okay, we're at the end now. The question and answers went on somewhat there, but I hope that was useful for everybody. I'll leave it at that. You've got the details on the screen there. If you do need to get in touch with the team, let us know how you get on, and you will get all of our information once the moderation portal is released, and I'll send the information through via email on the 4th of April. So thank you very much for everybody who's still with us there, and take care and get in touch if you need us. Okay, thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.